Hello, this is Jennifer Marshall. How are you all? Good morning. Well, it's mid-morning at the moment. And I've been trying to wrestle with my video camera because I just couldn't figure it out. Anyway, it's okay. I just finished the workout, so this is why I'm looking a little bit haggard, and I would like to just quickly come on live because I've been receiving a lot of questions about starter, maintaining your starter, and what happens when you place it in the fridge. And basically, I have my starters that have been living in the fridge for the last few days. And so I would like to show you my starters, how they look. Starters can live in the fridge for a long, long, long time. So if you're traveling, if you are not baking for a long time, it's okay to keep it in the fridge. Just make sure you cover it with a cloth, something like this, or else just cover it with cling film, though I'm trying to not use cling film at all. So having starters that live in the fridge, starters live in the fridge for a long, long time, few months even, don't worry about that. Now, if you are not thinking of baking for a very long time, then you can easily freeze your starter. So you take a dollop of your starter and you can freeze it, and then it's fine. You can rehydrate it when you're willing to come back. But starters live in the fridge for a long time, so it's fine. And sometimes what you end up having, when it's living in the fridge, you end up having a hard film on top, and perhaps also some discoloration, but it's fine. Discoloration is not a problem. As long as there is no mold, the starter is still fine. What you do is you scrape off the surface of your starter, which is fine. You take off all the discoloration and then do what I'm going to be doing right now. So I'm just going to show you what I'm doing. I just took out my starter from the fridge. I actually have two starters. So I have a starter that I did online, that I built online, and I haven't used since it became active and so on. So once it became active, I placed it back in the fridge. And this morning, just about 10-15 minutes ago actually, when I took it out, it had a dark film on top. I just scraped it off and I know it's ready to use again. So I don't know if you can see, it's been in my same container. It's looking very limp and so on, but there's a few bubbles on top, which is great. So, there's just no rise. Of course, when it's in the fridge, it's just dormant, so there's no rise. You can't expect, starters to be bubbling away in the fridge. And so what I will do is I will take about 50 grams of the starter and feed it again. So I'm going to show you exactly how to do it. And then I had another starter here. And as you can see, it's been living in the fridge. It's actually, the jar is still cold. And it's actually low, it's very limp. Again, there's no, it's nothing basically. But it smells yeasty, it smells lovely actually. I quite like the smell. And when you have this kind of smell, it's nothing to worry about either. Sometimes we get this acidic smell, this yeasty smell. It's fine, it's fine. These smells are just natural stuff that's occurring in the starters, the microbes, it's a living thing. So it's expected to smell yeasty, it's fine. So what I'll be doing is this. I have a clean jar. Okay, sorry I'm like this, but I'm trying to figure out how to set my camera up and so on. So I'm sort of like this, leaning on my cupboard, like, trying to get in the camera. And I've got two flours. I've got a strong white bread flour and I've got a whole wheat flour. So I'd like to bake, today is Thursday, so I'd like to bake Saturday, I think, or else even Friday, because Saturday I have the course. So in order to bake well, and if I had my starter in the fridge, living in the fridge, the best thing to do is to feed your starter twice. So you're giving it a lot of strength. So this is where it might get slightly confusing for some people. So I'm feeding it today, and I'll feed it again tonight. So I'll feed today, like I'm doing right now, and I'll do the same process again tonight. Then in the morning, I'll start preparing for my bake. So I'll be discarding and feeding, exactly like I'm doing. So you basically repeat this process twice. And what you're doing in the process is you're basically strengthening the starter. Most bakers and most sourdough books that you will buy will suggest this, to actually feed your starter at least twice before you plan to bake. So I'll be doing this right now, and I'll be doing it again tomorrow, and then in the morning I'm saying tomorrow morning because my starter needs at least 8 hours to ferment. So that's what I'll be doing. I'll be feeding right now. It will ferment by tonight. Then I'll feed again tonight, and it will ferment by tomorrow morning. Good. So here's my starter that's still cold. It's still a cold jar. So what I'll be doing, I've got my measuring, I've got a scales here. It's very, very important when you're baking with sourdough to have a good scales, to have scales. They don't have to be even good, just, you know, to measure in grams. You take a portion of your starter, so a portion of my kind of, you know, dormant starter, let's call it dormant. And I'll be taking about 50 grams. Let's go, there's a lot of gluten in this starter. So, sorry about the slow process, but it's all sticky. So when it's like, I think I had more white flour in this one, if I remember correctly. Yeah, I have 30, almost there. So I'm almost about going to make it. And what happens is that the more you bake, the more you realize that there's less and less discard that's left, actually, because you start planning your starters much better. So I have here 55 grams, which is absolutely fine. So I have 55 grams of starter right here, right now. And then what I'll be doing is I'll be feeding it with 100 grams of white flour and 100 grams of brown flour. So I'll be doing it right now. So basically, the ratio is that you get more flour to less starter. That's how I like to have it, so that there's a lot of strength being built. So 100 grams of white flour. Here we are. Try and be a bit quick. Okay, that's 100 grams. And then 100 grams of whole wheat. Now, if you don't want to, what's that? If you don't want to put 100 grams of whole wheat, it's absolutely fine. You can do 50, for example. So you can have 150. The most important is that you have a good feed. You give your starter a good feed. You know, you just have to think those microbes need to eat. So, you know, let's give them good feed. So, okay, I'm doing 100 grams of my brown flour, and then I'm going to feed 200 grams of water. So it's 100 grams of each flour and then 200 grams of water. We're almost there. Okay, good. There we are. And 200 grams of water. I give it a good mix. Sorry. Here we are. My jar is already too full. Okay, there we are. And I give it a good mix. And I'll cover it with a cloth with something light, because I want to make sure that my starter is breathing. It's very important. And I'll give it a good mix. Make sure that all your flours are well incorporated. There's no flour that's no grains left sort of unmixed. They have to be all well mixed. Part of your, it's like becomes a bit better. It becomes like a thick yogurt, mud, kind of, you know. And then you just let it ferment for about 8 hours. And tonight I'll be doing exactly the same process. So I'll be discarding or taking a new jar, take up again 50 grams or 60 grams if you want. It's up to you. It depends how much you're baking as well. So sort of, you know, with every 1 kilo of flour, I'll be using normally about 200 grams of starter. So I know that I'll need this kind of amount for tomorrow. So I'll be feeding again tonight. I'll take 50 grams of my fermented starter, feeding it with 200 grams of flour and 200 grams of water. And I'll have plenty of starter to make, I think, 4 breads. So, you know, I'll have about 400 grams of starter for sure, because when it ferments, of course, it goes up. So this is the process. I think I didn't give it enough water because I'm talking and I'm not concentrating on the grams. So yeah, I can tell. You see, it's super thick, and there's still a lot of grain left, flours that are unmixed here. I know if you can probably see it. You see? So all of it has to be mixed. So I can tell that I didn't mix it enough. I mean, yeah, I'm just talking and not concentrating. So, and the texture has to be, sort of the consistency has to be right. Good, and now it's better, much better. Good. And that's it, basically. And I just leave it in a nice warm place. I might actually leave it in my oven with the pilot lamp on. And tonight, I'll be doing exactly the same. I will not throw my discard away. So whatever I throw, whatever I leave, whatever is left back in my jar tonight, I'll be leaving it, because I'll be probably making some pasta with it, or else even some pizza dough. I think I've posted my my pizza dough recipe earlier in the post. I use this card. Basically, to make pizza dough, I use this card. It's great, you know, so you never waste it. And you can make muffins, you can make pancakes. The weekend is coming with this card. It's so much stuff you can make. You can make cakes. Basically, you know, even if you're doing a cake, you can just take out a cup of your discard and place it in your batter with your cake. You don't even have to follow a recipe. Just follow your cake recipe, add your cake, add a little bit of discard, and, you know, Bob's your uncle, as they say. In fact, when I do that, I reduce my butter content in my batter, because the discard is kind of acts a little bit like butter. In a way, it's good to have less butter, isn't it? So, okay, so there we are. This is done. Great. I don't like to touch it with my fingers, but I know that I've just washed my hands. So here is my discard, my sourdough. It's ready to ferment. You see the texture is a little bit thick, which is nice, because thicker starters take a bit of a longer time to ferment, but then they stay at their peak at a much longer level, much longer time. So this is what I want anyway. I prefer to have a longer peak rather than a shorter peak. So you get it for a longer period of time when you can actually use it for your bake. But I want to, we should really be feeding and discarding a couple of times before you bake to strengthen your starter. And this is really why I'm coming online, just to show you what my starter looked like. It looked very limp. It's been living in my fridge for a few days. And then you take it out, discard and feed. And I'll do again tonight. Okay, have a good rest of the day. Hope you're all well, stay safe, and speak again soon. Take care, bye-bye.